coach in Washington State history who's won more than 450 games, and in his mind, he's been the underdog in every one of them. Mike McKee and I had a conversation the other night, and we decided that really what he should be inducted into is the Sandbaggers Hall of Fame. There are stories that I'm sure his players and his assistants would enjoy hearing, perhaps even telling. Maybe they've told some already this evening around the table. With Roger, there's humorous stories, there's heartbreaking stories, and there are stories of intensity and challenge, and joyous stories of a spectacular career. I'm sure, as I said, many of you have reminisced about those already, and I'm sure Roger will tell some of those stories in a few minutes. I'm choosing not necessarily to tell stories this evening. I would rather talk about the qualities of a man who is a Hall of Fame caliber coach and a Hall of Fame caliber person. The story of a man committed to the impacting the lives of young men who just happen to play the game of basketball. God has gifted each one of us with a special set of gifts, and there is a unique and special sweet spot in anybody's life when their passion aligns with those gifts. And in Roger's case, if you spend 10 minutes with him, you know that Roger is that person who's living in that sweet spot because he recognizes the gifts that he's been given are aligned with what God has called him to be. And that is a blessing to all of us around him who have gotten to know him. The Apostle Paul, in writing to a letter of guidance and encouragement to a young church leader in the book of 1 Timothy, says this: I thank Jesus Christ our Lord, who has given me strength, and he considered me trustworthy, appointing me to his service. I'm sure Roger feels the same way about the ministry of coaching that God has called him to. It is the Lord who gives Roger strength, who considers Roger trustworthy to lead and to mentor young men in service to God's kingdom's work. Because God has called Roger in this manner, Roger has become mission-focused and mission-driven. His view of success is not measured by wins and losses. To him, success is measured by the impact he has on the lives of the young men that God brings across his path. He has challenged players for years to memorize and commit themselves to the program's mission statement and ask them to commit to it. And I'm going to guess that some of the players in this room, whether you played for them this last season or you played for them several years ago, you can still recall the links of the Warriors' mission statement. The writer Dorothy Sayers says, the only Christian work is work well done. You see, excellence is not a catchword to Roger. It's the desire of his heart to please God with his life, his coaching, and his responsibility as a husband and father and business owner. Now, let's be plain and simple. Roger's a people person. He cares about people in a unique and friendly manner. He is in his element when he's spending time with the people he cares about, he loves, and he enjoys. Now, Roger would readily admit that he has an adult version of ADD. And if you've ever been around him much, you know what that looks like. On a golf course, he can carry on a conversation, he can text about a business deal, all while trying to figure out whether he should use his fairway wood or an iron on his next shot. If you see him at a state tournament, he will stop and talk to many, many, many people that he's developed relationships over the years. It's rather comical to watch. Several years ago, we took a team to Orlando, Florida for a Christmas tournament, and we're walking through the airport, and he runs into somebody he knows. And he carries on a conversation with them. And it's just kind of, Roger, how do you know these people all over the place? I'm just dumbfounded by it. It's remarkable. Just last week, we went and played golf in Brewster, Washington, at Gamble Sands, which is in the desert outside of Brewster. We are walking up to the clubhouse, and as we enter the clubhouse, Roger's arms are extended, and it's, what are you doing here? As he runs into somebody from Linden, whose son happens to work at the golf course. And as Roger's carrying on this conversation, my son and my nephew, who both play for Roger, are walking up to pay our green fees. The guy tallies it up and tells us what the amount is, and we look at him like, that's not what the amount is. You got the Roger DeBoer discount. Should take Roger with me when I shop more often. It is that personal touch that Roger has as a good businessman, as a loving father, and as a good basketball coach that makes him a Hall of Fame person as well as a Hall of Fame coach. And I count that as one of the qualities that makes him a good friend. This week, the Bellingham Herald said, Roger wears his emotions firmly on his sleeve, leaving little doubt for anyone watching or listening to know exactly how he feels. Now, I think anybody in this room who knows Roger could have written that. All of us have certainly thought it, because that's who Roger is. And for Roger, who is incredibly vulnerable, vulnerability is a strength. It is courage. How, you might ask? Roger's honesty earns trust from those around him. And we all know how important trust is in relationships. Any coach in this room knows how important trust is in developing a state caliber team, a championship caliber team. Roger works hard at this, and it seems as though he develops those team bonds that when they are built up, they strengthen the fabric of that team rather than tear at it when times get tough. And I think we all know times will get tough. Those bonds are built because Roger is frank and honest with his players, his assistant coaches, his parents, and his supervisors. As difficult as that honesty can be, it is a clear indicator that Roger cares enough to demand the best from those people around him. And that care, that vulnerability to love, that trust changes everything. After he left the White House, former President Teddy Roosevelt traveled through Central Africa and then up into Europe. In 1910, while in France, he delivered one of the most often quoted speeches entitled The Man in the Arena. I am not stealing this from President Obama. When I watched that speech last night, he took it right from me. This quote goes from that speech. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again. But there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails daring greatly. Roger has lived in that arena for many years, and he has the scars and the trophies to show for it. He is a better person because of his engagements in that arena, and we who know him are better for him allowing us to enter that arena with him, to do good, to dare, to strive valiantly, to engage in worthy causes, because defeats are softened and victories are sweeter as a team. It is a given that a high school coach should know the X's and O's, how to organize an effective practice, how to strategize against an opponent, and how to maximize strengths and minimize weaknesses, all of which Roger does as a master coach. Don't get me wrong. Despite all that I've said, Roger knows the game well. Because he is driven by a God-designed mission and has lived it out in his coaching philosophy, because he focuses on his impact on people rather than on wins and losses, because of his vulnerability that results in trust relationships, Roger is deserving of this Hall of Fame recognition. I have coached against him, and I've coached with him. Having said all these things, I tell you from the bottom of my heart that I have the utmost respect for him as a man of God, a person of integrity, and I'm glad to count him as one of my close friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the WIBCA Class of 2016 Hall of Fame nominee, Mr. Roger DeBoer.
Thank you for those kind words. You know, a part of me wants to go, yeah, what he said, I'm out, and throw my mic down and leave it about at that, because that was incredibly kind, and for that I thank you. To Brian, Eric Lindblad, Sean Dieger, who started this whole process out in the nomination process and working through that, I thank you guys for creating the opportunity and the beginning stages of what is happening tonight. I thank you for that. I want to thank Dave Dixon, who does a remarkable job of organizing and operating the Hall of Fame banquets. You get to use double duty tonight, and that's really cool. But let's not forget that you were in Spokane a couple nights ago, and you do an awful lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you for that. To Rose DeGroat, you don't let us down. Thank you so much. You do a fantastic job of catering. Really appreciate that. To WIBCA, what an honor to be standing before you, to be presented with an award like this or an honor like this is something that you do not take lightly. To be recognized by your peers is something that means a lot. We can fake it and use false humility, but when your peers say, hey, great job, it means something, and it's very, very special. So to WIBCA, it does mean a lot, and to the WIBCA board who allowed this to be possible. To all the other Hall of Fame members, it's an honor to be joining that family. Wow. You know, when you get started in this, it's not what you think about doing. It's not even really remotely in the realm of possibilities. So to be standing before you and to be part of that membership is something that's really, really cool. When this whole process started, it was kind of interesting because the nominations came out and, you know, the word gets out. Lyndon, I know that's a big surprise that word travels fast. And someone came up to me and they go, this Hall of Fame thing, isn't that something for people that are either really, really old or dead? And we kind of had some tongue-in-cheek laughter, and then I began to realize that, you know, as much as I would love to not look at reality, the reality is that we're in the twilight of our career when you have a moment like this. And that's what kind of created what I'd like to share with you, is that I look back and when you have the opportunity to be part of this, you reflect. You reflect back at your journey. And I would like to liken it to a journey and a love fest with the game of basketball, with Jesus and with family. Because that's what this, for me, has really been all about. It's been that type of thing. And you know, it's weird how they all kind of blend together. You cannot mutually exclude those one from another. And I want to give you just kind of a little bit of a timeline and talk a little bit about early in life. I mean, I was exposed to basketball at a very, very young age. My sisters cheered at Lyndon Christian. My parents were big basketball fans and still are. I know that Mike talked about, you know, the people that ranked those teams. My dad was one of the members of that board or committee or whatever it was that ranked them because they knew my dad was a basketball junkie. My parents to this day, now that they're in walkers, happy birthday to Dad. It's going to be his 88th birthday on Saturday. My parents are 88 years old, and they still take their walkers across the baseline at home games, plop them down at the end of the baseline, turn them around, and yell like crazy. And we all love it. So my love for basketball started early, and it was set by my parents, chasing my cheerleading sisters around and going to lots of games. The other part, though, is that I was part of Whatcom County basketball at its finest. And one of the things that I had the opportunity in growing up is to see a number of the greats. I had a chance as a little boy to go to games that were coached by guys like Caleb Master and Jake Mayberry and John Clark and Bill DeHogue at Lyndon Christian, and guys that set a standard for the rest of us in coaching, and how incredibly exciting it was for me to go watch Whatcom County basketball games, not knowing at that point that, you know, I would be coaching someday. I did share with my parents at a really young age, I think it was somewhere in that 5th or 6th grade realm, I said, someday I want to be a teacher and a coach, and it's going to be great. And for that, I'm grateful to be able to grow up in such a basketball-rich community. I remember at our farm, we had a slab of sidewalk, and on that slab, there was some cracks, whether that be from an earthquake or just settling or whatever. And my nieces, I know Dawn and Leanne are here, and they would either come out and watch me or talk trash to me or do whatever, but we would take different shots from the cracks in the sidewalk, and that was part of my growing up and my love of the game and what that meant, and it was really cool. That experience built into high school, right? You're a junkie and you love the game, and the next thing you know, that you're in high school and had a great high school experience playing basketball, playing all sports. And I had the opportunity to play, as some of the guys already aforementioned, to play on the state title team in 1982 at Lyndon Christian. Incredible. The cool thing about it, though, was the teammates that I had. And just thinking about that and reminiscing this week with my wife, guys like, you know, Dwayne Skolton, Craig Guntz, Ken Widenar, Jim Meyer, Mark Stremler, just to name a few. But there's one in particular that I want to spotlight tonight, and his parents are here, and that's Brent Reinsma. Now, I should say the late Brent Reinsma. Brett and I were close. Our families were close growing up.